Morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for the deep dive. We've just wrapped up quite an intricate journey through computer hardware, architecture components, and modern systems. Really got under the hood there, didn't we? Understanding what makes our digital world, well, pick.
We certainly did. It was a good foundation.
Exactly. And now we're pivoting. We're moving into a topic that's not just critical, it's increasingly defining our modern existence. Cybersecurity fundamentals. Principles, practices, and defenses.
It really is fundamental now.
It is. And this isn't just for the IT pros anymore, right? It's become a cornerstone of national security, economic stability, even our everyday personal safety. I mean, think about it. Everything from your banking app right up to the power grids lighting our cities.
Absolutely. It underpins so much.
So it's vital stuff.
And for this first deep dive in the series, we're really setting the stage. We're looking at the foundations of cybersecurity and the threat landscape. Our mission today really is to get those core principles down. Understand the adversaries, who they are, what motivates them, dissect their methods, how they attack, and then introduce some foundational defense strategies.
Okay, laying the groundwork.
Precisely. And just to hammer home how urgent this is, consider this projection. By 2025, the global cost of cybercrime is expected to hit $10.5 trillion annually.
Wow. 10.5 trillion?
Trillion, yeah. To put that in perspective, if cybercrime were a country, its economy would be the third largest in the world. Only the US and China would be bigger.
That's staggering. Really paints a picture.
It does. It's not just a number. It reflects a huge, pervasive, and constantly evolving challenge we're all facing.
Okay, let's unpack this then. That figure is, eye-watering. It definitely shows the landscape we're dealing with. So, for this deep dive, where are we starting? You said framing cybersecurity first.
Yeah, exactly. We'll start by defining what cybersecurity really means today, because it's broader than many think. Then we'll dig into that foundational model, the CIA Triad. It helps us think about what we're actually protecting.
Confidentiality, integrity, availability. Or...
That's the one. Then, from there, we'll profile the attackers, the threat actors, everyone from script kiddies causing mischief, right up to those highly sophisticated state-sponsored groups, the APTs.
Okay, know your enemy.
Essential. Then we'll look at their common tools and techniques and the attack vectors. And finally, we'll introduce a core strategic concept for defense. Defense in depth.
Sounds like a comprehensive journey. Should be insightful.
Hope so.
All right, let's start at the very beginning then. Many people, myself included sometimes, might just think of cybersecurity as, keeping the hackers out, putting up a firewall. But you said it's broader now. How does that old definition fall short?
That's a perfect place to start because, that keeping hackers out idea is just far too narrow for today's world. Modern cybersecurity is, it's actually this vast multidisciplinary field. Think of it as the whole collection of technologies, yes, but also processes and practices, all designed to protect networks, devices, software, and critically, data.
From what specifically?
Well, from a whole spectrum of threats. Deliberate attacks, sure, but also accidental damage or, unauthorized access. It really spans everything.
Like what kind of range are we talking?
It goes from, say, the really complex cryptography that secures your online banking, right down to something as seemingly simple but vital as choosing a strong password and not reusing it everywhere.
Okay. So it's technology, but also human behavior.
Absolutely. And what makes it so challenging today is that it's not static. You can't just set it and forget it. It's a continuous, evolving process. It involves technology, sure, but also strong policies, ongoing training for people, and just constant vigilance.
Vigilance across the board.
Yeah, across every layer of an organization, really. It's become a shared responsibility. From, you as an individual practicing good cyber hygiene, right up to governments working to protect critical national infrastructure.
That makes sense. It's not a product you buy off the shelf. It's more like a posture you have to constantly maintain.
Exactly. A posture. That's a great way to put it.
Okay, so given how pervasive it is, the stakes must be incredibly high. When things go wrong, when cybersecurity fails, what are the real-world consequences? Beyond just the technical glitch, I mean.
Oh, the consequences are huge, and they ripple outwards. Because like we said, our modern world is just fundamentally built on data. Everything relies on it.
So when that data is compromised?
Well, first, there's the obvious, direct financial loss. That could be straight up theft, fraud, or massive business disruption. Think about a ransomware attack locking up a company's files. Operations just grind to a halt. The costs can be astronomical.
Right, I read about those. Hospitals being hit, cities.
Exactly. And it's not just the immediate financial hit. There's severe reputational damage. If a company suffers a big data breach, customer trust can just evaporate overnight.
Yeah, hard to earn back.
Very hard. It can damage a brand for years, sometimes permanently, but then you get into even more serious territory, disruption of critical services.
Like the power grid example.
Precisely. Imagine a successful attack taking down a major power grid, or tampering with a water supply system, or crippling a hospital's IT, stopping them accessing patient records, controlling equipment. These aren't just hypotheticals anymore. They pose real dangers to public safety, even national security.
That's genuinely frightening.
It is. And then there's the impact on individuals, the erosion of privacy.
Yeah.
When personal data gets stolen, it can lead to identity theft, harassment, financial ruin, a fundamental loss of control over your own information, your autonomy.
So these aren't just abstract technical issues. They hit society, individuals really hard.
Profoundly. There's societal problems with a technical dimension, maybe.
Okay. It's clear these aren't just, headaches for the IT department. They're major societal challenges. So faced with all this complexity, how do security professionals even start to think about what they need to protect? Is there like a framework, a model they use?
There is, thankfully. To bring some structure to this whole domain, professionals rely on a really foundational model. It's known as the CIA Triad.
CIA, okay. Not that CIA, I assume.
No, not that one. It was easy to remember because of it. In cybersecurity, CIA stands for confidentiality, integrity, and availability.
Right, I've heard those terms.
They're the bedrock, really.
Okay.
They outline the 3 core goals, the fundamental objectives of any information security program. The whole aim of having a robust security posture, it's to successfully maintain all 3 of these pillars.
All 3 at the same time.
Ideally, yes. Balancing them is key. A strong defense keeps confidentiality, ensures integrity, and provides availability.
Okay, so the CIA Triad is often talked about as this sort of holy grail for information security. Yeah. But you mentioned balancing them. In the real world, keeping that perfect balance must be tricky, right? Like, are there tensions between them? Say, between keeping things super secret confidential and making sure people can actually access them availability.
You've hit the nail on the head. That's exactly where the real-world complexity comes in. They aren't always perfectly aligned. Let's unpack each one. But yeah, keep that dynamic interplay, that tension in mind.
Okay, let's start with the C, confidentiality. What does that mean in practice?
So confidentiality is basically the principle of secrecy. It's all about preventing unauthorized disclosure of information, ensuring that data is accessible only to those individuals who are actually authorized to see it.
Like keeping a secret.
Exactly. Think of it like a sealed letter in the mail, theoretically. Only the intended recipient should open and read it. Or maybe a better analogy is a bank vault. Only authorized personnel with the right keys or combinations can get inside to view the contents.
Okay, makes sense. And how do we achieve that technically?
Well, there are several key mechanisms. Encryption is a huge one, scrambling data so it's unreadable without the correct decryption key. Then you have things like access control lists or ACLs. These define very specific permissions, like who can view, modify, or delete certain files or folders.
So setting permissions.
Right. And also data classification. This involves labeling data based on its sensitivity, like public, internal, confidential, restricted. That label then dictates the level of security controls required to protect it. Strong authentication, making sure users are who they say they are before granting access, is also fundamental to confidentiality.
Got it. Secrecy, encryption, access control. What about the I, integrity?
Okay, integrity. This is the principle of trustworthiness. It's about maintaining the consistency, accuracy, and reliability of data throughout its entire lifecycle. Meaning, you need assurance that the data hasn't been changed, altered, or deleted in any unauthorized way, whether that's malicious tampering or just an accidental mistake. The data you're looking at needs to be the correct, unaltered version.
Can you give an analogy for that one?
Sure. Think about a legal contract. If someone could just secretly change the terms after it's signed, the whole document becomes worthless, right? Its integrity is compromised. Or think of a critical piece of code for software. An unauthorized change could introduce bugs or security holes.
Right. The data needs to be reliable. How do we ensure that?
Again, several mechanisms. Hatching is a very common one. You run data through a hash function, and it produces a unique fixed-size string like a digital fingerprint. If even one bit of the data changes, the hash value changes completely. So by comparing hashes, you can instantly tell if data has been tampered with.
Okay, like a checksum.
Similar concept, yeah. Digital signatures also play a role, using cryptography to verify the authenticity and integrity of a message or document. Version control systems like Git are crucial for tracking changes to code or documents, allowing you to revert if needed. And of course, strict access controls, again ensuring only authorized users can make changes in the first place, and often requiring audit trails to log who changed what when.
Makes sense. Trustworthiness, hashing, signatures, version control.
Okay.
That leaves the A, availability.
Right, availability. This principle is all about accessibility. It means ensuring that information and the systems that process it are available and operational for use when needed by authorized users, basically preventing disruption of access.
So the system needs to be up and running when you need it.
Exactly. Think of a public library. It needs to be open during its advertised hours, and the books need to be on the shelves and accessible to patrons. If the doors are locked unexpectedly or all the books are hidden away, it fails on availability.
Like a website being down.
That's a classic example. Or not being able to access your work files when you need them. For critical systems like emergency services 911 in the US, for example, availability is absolutely paramount. It has to work, always.
So how do organizations ensure availability?
This involves things like system redundancy, having backup servers, maybe in different locations, so if one fails, another can take over seamlessly. Comprehensive disaster recovery planning is key, knowing how to restore services quickly after an outage, whether it's due to hardware failure, natural disaster, or an attack.
Planning for the worst.
Pretty much. Regular hardware and software maintenance helps prevent failures in the first place. And crucially, defending against attacks specifically designed to impact availability, like those denial of service or DDoS attacks we mentioned earlier.
Right, the ones that flood the system.
Exactly. Preventing those is a major part of ensuring availability.
Now, going back to that tension you mentioned earlier, how do these three pillars interact, or sometimes conflict?
Ah, yes, the balancing act. It's constant. A perfect example arises if you push too hard for, say, maximum confidentiality. Imagine locking down data with multiple layers of encryption, complex multi-factor authentication for every access, strict network segmentation.
I'm very secure.
It is, but it might become incredibly slow or cumbersome for legitimate, authorized users to actually get to the data they need to do their jobs. In that case, your pursuit of extreme confidentiality has negatively impacted availability.
Okay, I see that trade-off.
Or flip it around. Maybe you prioritize availability above all else for a public-facing website. You minimize authentication steps, maybe cache data aggressively to make it super fast, but perhaps in doing so, you make it easier for someone to gain unauthorized access, compromising confidentiality,
Right.
or maybe easier to deface the site, impacting integrity.
So it's not about maximizing each one in isolation.
Not usually, no. The real challenge isn't just understanding C, I, and A. It's understanding how they push and pull against each other in specific real-world contexts. Organizations constantly have to make strategic trade-offs, deciding which risks they're more willing to accept based on their business needs, their data sensitivity, regulatory requirements, and their overall risk appetite. It's a continuous optimization problem, not a one-size-fits-all solution.
That's a really critical insight. It's not about independent goals, but these interdependent forces you have to constantly manage.
Precisely.
Okay, so if we're building defenses based on protecting CI and A, you mentioned we need to understand the adversary. Who are these people? Who are the different types of threat actors out there in the digital wild, and what makes them tick?
Knowing your enemy is absolutely fundamental in cybersecurity, yeah. And the landscape of adversaries is incredibly diverse. They vary wildly in their motivations, their skill levels, their resources.
So not all hackers are the same.
Not at all. On the, let's say, lower end of the skill spectrum, but still potentially impactful, you have what are often called script kiddies.
Script kiddies sounds a bit dismissive.
It can sound that way, but it refers to amateurs, often younger individuals, who lack deep technical skills themselves. They primarily use pre-written scripts and hacking tools developed by others, which they might find online.
So they're not writing their own code.
Generally, no. Their motivations are often things like curiosity, seeking attention, or bragging rights within online communities, or maybe just causing minor disruption for the thrill of it. The danger is, even though they're unskilled, some of the tools available today are quite powerful and easy to use, so they can still cause significant damage if they target systems that aren't well protected.
Okay, so curiosity and ego-driven, using existing tools. Who else?
Then you have hacktivists. These are individuals, or sometimes loosely organized groups, who use hacking techniques to promote a political or social agenda.
Ah, so ideology is the driver there.
Exactly. Their goal usually isn't direct financial gain. It's more about making a statement, raising awareness for their cause, embarrassing a target organization or government, or disrupting their operations as a form of protest.
Can you give an example?
Well, groups like Anonymous became famous for this kind of activity. They conducted high-profile DDoS attacks against corporate and government websites, leaked sensitive documents, all in the name of various political or social causes they supported. Their methods can range from simple website defacements to more sophisticated data breaches.
Interesting. So driven by ego, driven by ideology.
Yeah.
But what about the money? Who represents the biggest slice of the pie when it comes to financially motivated attacks?
Now you're talking about the largest, most active, and arguably most pervasive category, cybercriminals.
Okay. And their goal is simple.
Pretty much exclusively financial gain.
Yeah.
These can be individuals, small groups, or increasingly highly sophisticated, well-organized criminal enterprises that operate like actual businesses.
Like businesses. How so?
Seriously. Some ransomware gangs, for example, have clear organizational structures. They conduct research and development on new attack methods. They might offer customer support to victims to help them pay the ransom. They might even have affiliate programs. It's become incredibly professionalized.
Well, that's quite something.
It is. Their methods are diverse, all aimed at making money. Deploying ransomware is huge right now, extorting payments, stealing credit card details, online banking credentials for fraud, committing various types of online scams, and stealing sensitive data, personal information, corporate secrets, not necessarily to use it themselves, but to sell it on dark web marketplaces.
So a whole underground economy.
A massive one. These groups are often opportunistic, hitting easy targets, but they're also increasingly capable of targeted, persistent attacks against specific organizations they think will pay large sums. They are constantly evolving their tactics to maximize profit.
That brings up a chilling thought. We often think of threats coming from outside. But what about threats that originate inside an organization? From people who are supposed to be trusted?
That's a really important category known as insider threats. And they are a major concern for organizations.
Because they already have access.
Exactly. An insider threat originates from someone within the organization, could be a current or former employee, a contractor, even a business partner who has legitimate access to systems and data.
And are these always malicious? Like a disgruntled employee?
Sometimes, yes, that's the malicious insider. Maybe someone who feels wronged, is about to be fired, or is leaving for a competitor. They might actively seek revenge by deleting critical data, sabotaging systems, or stealing valuable intellectual property to take with them.
Okay, the classic revenge scenario.
Right. But insider threats aren't always malicious. A huge portion are actually accidental.
Accidental? How?
Think about a well-meaning employee who just makes a mistake. They might accidentally click on a sophisticated phishing link and install malware, or misconfigure a cloud server setting, leaving sensitive data exposed to the internet, or lose a company laptop that wasn't properly encrypted. They didn't intend to cause harm, but the consequences can be just as severe.
So, carelessness or lack of awareness?
Often, yes. And that's why insider threats are particularly dangerous. Whether malicious or accidental, these individuals already have legitimate credentials, they know the internal layout, they bypass perimeter defenses like firewalls. This makes them incredibly difficult to detect using traditional security tools focused on external attacks.
A very tricky problem. Okay, we've covered script kiddies, hacktivists, cybercriminals, insiders. Is there a level above that? What's considered the absolute top tier, the highest level of threat in the cybersecurity world?
There is, and that brings us to advanced persistent threats, or APTs.
Advanced persistent threats. Sounds serious.
They are. This term generally refers to the most sophisticated, most well-resourced, and most patient threat actors out there. They are typically sponsored or directly operated by nation-states.
So government-backed hackers.
Essentially, yes. Their objectives are usually aligned with national interests, not immediate financial gain. Think long-term espionage, stealing state secrets, military plans, advanced technology designs, gathering intelligence on rival nations or corporations, or in some cases, positioning themselves for strategic disruption of a rival's critical infrastructure power grids, financial systems, communication networks perhaps to be activated during a conflict.
Wow. So this is cyber warfare territory.
It certainly borders on it. What really characterizes APTs is their stealth and persistence, the P in APT. They are masters at gaining access quietly and remaining undetected within a target network for very long periods, months, sometimes even years.
Years.
They use highly customized malware. zero-day exploits, vulnerabilities unknown to the vendor, sophisticated social engineering. Techniques designed to evade standard security defenses. Once inside, they move laterally, very slowly and carefully mapping out the network, identifying high-value targets, escalating privileges, and gradually exfiltrating data in small amounts to avoid triggering alarms. They establish multiple backdoors, so even if one access point is discovered, they can maintain their foothold.
That sounds incredibly patient and methodical.
It is. They have significant funding, top-tier talent, and the long-term strategic goals that allow for this kind of patient, persistent approach. They represent the highest level of threat that governments and major corporations face.
Okay, so we've got a clearer picture of the adversaries now, from the amateurs to the state-sponsored elite. Let's talk about their tools. What are the most common methods, the common pathways or vectors, I think you called them, that these actors use to actually breach systems?
Right. Understanding the common threat vectors is absolutely critical for building effective defenses. Because if you know how they're likely to try and get in, you can focus your defenses there.
Makes sense. So what's top of the list?
Well, one huge, broad category is malware. That's short for malicious software, as you probably know. It's really an umbrella term for any software intentionally designed to cause damage, disrupt operations, steal information, or generally exploit any programmable device, network, or service.
Okay, malware. But there are different kinds, right?
Oh, many different kinds. Some classic examples include viruses. These are pieces of code that attach themselves to legitimate programs or files. When you run the infected program, the virus executes and tries to spread itself to other programs.
Like a biological virus.
Exactly, that's the analogy. Then you have worms. These are similar to viruses, but they're self-replicating and can spread across networks without needing human interaction, like clicking a file. They exploit vulnerabilities to jump from machine to machine, which can lead to rapid, widespread infections.
Okay, self-spreading, what else?
Ransomware is obviously huge right now. This type of malware encrypts the victim's files, making them completely inaccessible. The attackers then demand a ransom payment, usually in cryptocurrency like Bitcoin, in exchange for the decryption key.
And they target big organizations now, right?
Increasingly, yes. It's evolved from just hitting individuals to big game hunting, targeting large corporations, hospitals, city governments, critical infrastructure providers because they can demand much larger ransoms. Some even threaten to leak stolen data if the ransom isn't paid, double extortion.
Nasty stuff. Keep going.
Sure, there's spyware. As the name suggests, this malware secretly monitors the user's activity keystrokes, websites visited, login credentials, and sends that information back to the attacker, often used for identity theft or corporate espionage. And then you have Trojans, or Trojan horses. This is malware disguised as legitimate, desirable software. You might download what looks like a free game or a useful utility, but when you install and run it, it secretly installs a malicious payload in the background.
Sneaky. Like the Trojan horse legend.
Precisely. It tricks the user into letting it inside the defenses. And what's really concerning now is how AI is being used. Attackers are leveraging artificial intelligence to create malware that can change its own code, polymorphic or metamorphic malware, making it much harder for traditional antivirus software, which relies on recognizing known malware signatures to detect.
So the malware itself is getting smarter.
Unfortunately, yes. The arms race continues.
Okay, malware's a big one. What's another major attack vector?
Another extremely prevalent and, frankly, highly effective vector is phishing.
Ah, yes, the dodgy emails.
Exactly. Phishing is fundamentally a social engineering attack. The attacker sends a fraudulent message, most often an email, but it can also be via text message, that's called smishing, or social media designed to trick the human victim.
Trick them into doing what?
Usually one of two things, either revealing sensitive information directly, things like usernames, passwords, credit card numbers, bank account details, or tricking them into clicking a malicious link or opening an infected attachment, which then downloads and installs malware onto their device.
And they make these look legitimate.
No, very much so. The email might appear to come from a trusted source, your bank, a popular online service like Netflix or PayPal, maybe even your own company's IT department. They use convincing logos, formatting, and language to create a false sense of trust and urgency, prompting the recipient to act quickly without thinking critically.
It's surprisingly effective, isn't it? Even for people who should know better.
It really is. It's a testament to how effective manipulating human psychology can be. It often bypasses technical defenses because it targets the person, not the machine directly.
That's a perfect segue, actually. You just used the term social engineering. You said phishing is a type of it. Can you unpack that concept a bit more? What exactly does social engineering entail, and why is it so powerful?
Sure. Social engineering is really the broader art, or science maybe, of psychological manipulation. It's about using deception and influence to trick people into divulging confidential information or performing actions they really shouldn't, actions that might compromise security.
So it's about exploiting people, not code.
Exactly. Instead of looking for technical vulnerabilities in software or hardware, social engineers exploit vulnerabilities in human psychology. Our natural tendencies to be helpful, to trust people who seem authoritative, to respond to urgency, or even just our curiosity.
What are some examples besides phishing?
Well, there's vishing, which is voice phishing, basically, phishing attacks conducted over phone calls. An attacker might call pretending to be from tech support or your bank's fraud department trying to coax sensitive information out of you.
Okay, phishing by phone.
Right. Then there's baiting. This often involves physical media. For example, an attacker might leave a malware-infected USB drive labeled something tempting like employee salaries or confidential in a public area like an office lobby or parking lot. Someone finds it, curiosity gets the better of them, they plug it into their computer, and bam, malware is installed.
Wow, preying on curiosity.
Exactly. Another one is pretexting. This is where the attacker invents a believable scenario, a pretext, to build trust and gain information. They might impersonate a coworker, a vendor, an external auditor, someone with a legitimate reason to ask for certain data, weaving an elaborate story to make the request seem normal.
So it's basically skillful lying.
In essence, yes. Highly manipulative lying. And the really surprising, or perhaps sobering insight here is just how often the human element is the weakest link in the security chain. You can have the most advanced firewalls, intrusion detection systems, encryption, but if an attacker can trick an authorized user into giving up their credentials or letting malware in, those technical defenses become irrelevant.
Training people must be crucial then.
Absolutely critical. Awareness training is a key defense against social engineering.
Okay. One more major attack type you mentioned earlier was denial of service. Can you elaborate on DDoS attacks?
Right. Denial of service, DDoS, and more commonly its bigger sibling, distributed denial of service, DDoS. We touched on this when talking about availability in the CIA Triad.
Because it makes things unavailable.
Precisely. The goal of a DOS or DDoS attack is to overwhelm a target, typically a website, an online service, or a network with so much traffic that it becomes completely unavailable to its legitimate users.
How do they generate that much traffic?
In a simple DOS attack, it might come from a single source, but that's usually easy to block. A distributed denial of service, DDoS, is much more powerful and harder to defend against. The attacker uses a network of compromised computers, often thousands, even millions of them, called a botnet.
A botnet, like robot network.
Kinda, yeah. These are often ordinary computers, servers, even increasingly insecure Internet of Things, IoT devices, like webcams or smart home gadgets, that have been infected with malware, placing them under the attacker's control without the owner's knowledge.
So they harness all these hacked devices.
Exactly. The attacker then commands this entire botnet to simultaneously flood the target server or network connection with an overwhelming volume of bogus traffic connection requests, data packets, whatever. The target's resources, like bandwidth or processing power, simply get exhausted trying to handle this deluge.
And the result?
The server might crash completely or become so slow and unresponsive that legitimate users can't get through. It's effectively taken offline. This directly impacts availability, obviously, and can cause significant financial losses due to downtime and major reputational damage. DDoS attacks are a common tool for hacktivists, cybercriminals engaging in extortion, or even nation-states wanting to disrupt rivals.
Okay. So we've got malware, phishing, and social engineering. DDoS,
Right.
Quite the arsenal attackers have. Given the sheer variety and the sophistication we're seeing,
Correct.
just relying on one single security control, like just having a firewall, sounds, well, like an open invitation to disaster.
You are absolutely spot on. Relying on a single point of defense, a single security tool, is incredibly risky. It's the old saying, don't put all your eggs in one basket. If that one defense fails or gets bypassed, then the attacker has free rein.
So what's the alternative? What's the foundational strategic approach for building a defense that's actually robust and resilient?
The foundational strategy, the core principle really, for building a strong security posture is known as defense in depth.
Defense in depth. Okay,
Yeah.
sounds military.
It is. The concept is borrowed directly from military strategy, actually. Think about defending a castle or a strategic location. You wouldn't rely on just a single wall, right?
No, you'd want multiple layers.
Exactly. Defense in depth applies that same layered approach to cybersecurity. The core idea is that if one defensive layer fails to stop an attacker, and inevitably sometimes layers will fail or be bypassed, there's another layer waiting right behind it to detect or stop the attack.
So redundancy in defense.
Precisely. No single security control is perfect or infallible. Firewalls can be misconfigured, antivirus can miss new malware, users can be tricked. But by implementing multiple overlapping layers of different types of controls, you create a much more resilient system. It makes it significantly harder for an attacker to succeed.
Okay, the layered approach makes sense. Can you give that castle analogy again? How does that map to cybersecurity layers?
Sure, the castle analogy works really well. Imagine that medieval fortress, the moat surrounding the castle. That's like your first line of network defense, your perimeter firewall, filtering traffic coming in from the internet.
Okay, keeps the bulk out.
Right. Then you have the high castle walls. These are maybe like your intrusion detection and prevention systems, IDPS. They're actively monitoring network traffic that gets past the firewall, looking for suspicious patterns or known attack signatures.
Watching for invaders who cross the moat.
Exactly. The archers stationed on those walls. Think of them as your endpoint security, the antivirus software, the endpoint detection and response, EDR tools running on individual computers and servers actively looking for and blocking malware.
Okay, active defense on the inside.
Then you have the guards patrolling inside the castle grounds. This could represent strong user authentication, multi-factor authentication, MFA, making sure only authorized people get in, and strict access controls, least privilege, ensuring users only have access to the resources they absolutely need to do their jobs.
Limiting movement even if they get past the walls.
Yes. And finally, you have the keep itself, the most heavily fortified part in the center, maybe with its own locked door, where the crown jewels or the royal family resides. This is analogous to protecting the data itself using strong encryption for sensitive data, both at rest when stored and in transit when moving across the network, and implementing data loss prevention DLP tools to stop critical information from leaving the network.
Protecting the ultimate prize.
Exactly. An attacker might manage to breach the moat, maybe even scale a section of the wall. But they still have to get past the archers, evade the guards, figure out how to get into the keep, and then deal with the encrypted data. Each layer presents another obstacle.
So it slows them down.
It slows them down significantly, yes. It increases the cost and complexity of the attack. And crucially, each layer also provides another opportunity for the defenders to detect the intrusion before the attacker reaches their ultimate goal. The more layers they have to bypass, the higher the chance they'll trip an alarm somewhere.
And these layers aren't all just technical, right?
Excellent point. No, defense in depth encompasses different types of controls. There are technical controls like firewalls, encryption, MFA, IDPS, but there are also crucial administrative controls, things like security policies and procedures, incident response plans, disaster recovery plans, and very importantly, security awareness training for users.
Training is a layer of defense.
A vital one. And finally, there are physical controls, often overlooked, but things like locks on server room doors, surveillance cameras, access badges to secure areas, proper disposal of old hard drives, these are all part of a layered defense strategy too.
Fascinating. It really paints a picture of a holistic, multifaceted approach, not just a single silver bullet.
No silver bullets in cybersecurity, unfortunately, just layers.
Okay, this has been incredibly illuminating. We've covered a lot of ground, from defining the scope to the CIA Triad, the adversaries, their methods, and now this core strategy of defense in depth. To sort of synthesize all of this foundational discussion, what are the absolute key principles, the main strategic concepts you really want our listeners to walk away with today?
Right, let's try and boil it down. I think there are a few critical takeaways from this foundational deep dive. First, the core mission, the why behind everything we do in cybersecurity, is fundamentally about protecting our digital assets. And the framework we use to guide that protection is the CIA Triad, upholding confidentiality, ensuring integrity, and maintaining availability. That's our compass. CIA.
Got it.
Second, achieving that mission absolutely requires a deep and constantly updated understanding of the threat landscape. We need to know our adversaries, their motivations, capabilities, from the script kiddies right up to sophisticated APTs. And we need to understand their common attack vectors, how they try to get in, whether it's through malware, clever social engineering like phishing, or brute force DDoS attacks. You can't defend effectively if you don't understand the offense.
Know the enemy, know their weapons.
Exactly. And third, perhaps the most crucial strategic takeaway. In the face of such a diverse and evolving threat landscape, relying on a single defense is simply not enough. It will eventually fail. Therefore, the strategic imperative is defense in depth. We must build layered, resilient defenses like that medieval castle, combining technical, administrative, and physical controls. Assume breaches will happen at some layers and ensure other layers are there to compensate.
Layers, layers, layers.
That's the mantra. So, upholding the CIA Triad, understanding the threats and adversaries, and implementing defense in depth, that foundational understanding is absolutely vital for anyone, really, who's operating in our increasingly interconnected and, frankly, dangerous digital world.
That's a fantastic summary. This deep dive has really laid the groundwork perfectly. We've defined the principles, we've surveyed the battlefield, understood the core strategy. It feels like we've built the foundation.
Hopefully, yes, that was the goal.
So what's next? Where do we go from here in the series?
Well, now that we have the strategy, the next step is to get more into the tactics. So in our next installment, we'll start drilling down into specific layers of that defense in depth model. We'll be exploring securing the perimeter, network, and endpoint defense.
Okay, so firewalls, intrusion detection, antivirus, endpoint security, that kind of thing.
Exactly. We'll look at the technologies and practices used to protect the boundaries of our networks and the individual devices connected to them, moving from the high-level strategy to the practical implementation.
Excellent. Looking forward to that. Well, thank you so much for guiding us through this essential deep dive into cybersecurity fundamentals today. And thank you all for joining us. We truly appreciate you dedicating your time to understanding these vital concepts. For more insights like this and to continue building your expertise in technology, AI, cybersecurity, and beyond, please do remember to subscribe to our channel, Tech AI and Beyond. We'd love to have you with us on our next deep dive.